Hello, everyone, and welcome to the English Hour. It's 3 a.m. in the morning, and I'm glad to be back. It's been a very hectic term, and I finally get to record a new episode, and I'm very happy. It's good to be back. Well, in this episode, we'll talk about our little big world. And when you look at the title, it might seem a little bit contradictory, and it might sound like an oxymoron, but it's actually not. The world can be a very big and immense place, and it could also be a very small place, depending on how you experience it. And today, I will talk about how my perception of the world changed as I got older and as I got more experiences in my life. But before we start, I'd like to offer my thanks to you all, because when I was not recording new episodes, I kept getting emails, Twitter messages, and comments from listeners all around the world, and it was very motivating. And last week I got a message from Argentina. A listener sent a very sort of motivating message, and it felt great to be connecting with people, with listeners all around the world. Sometimes it's the listeners from Portugal, sometimes it's Argentina, sometimes it's Turkey, sometimes it's somewhere in Europe or in the US. It's great to be friends. It's great to know all of you. So thanks to all of our listeners. So let's talk about how our perception of the world changes depending on our experiences, depending on our upbringing. When I was a kid, I used to live in a little rural village in a city called Trabzon, which is in the northeastern part of Turkey. And when I was a little kid, my perception of the world was not really complete. I mean, to be honest, I didn't really think about the world. I was more like thinking in terms of my city, because that was all that I knew. Like, I was thinking about my village and school and the town, not even the city itself. I was in a village in a little town. So my perception of the world was very limited. And I didn't have an understanding of the world, like not even my country. I wasn't really thinking about other countries or the world in general. So I had, as I said, a very limited understanding of the world or how the world worked. Well, as I got older, in high school, I got to sort of travel a little bit more. I got to learn about the city, and I got to travel to different districts of the city. This time it was not just about the village and the very rural experiences. And I had a few trips to other cities. But at this point, although I had a map of my country, which is Turkey, like in my mind, I really had not been to most of the cities. Like I had been to maybe 4 or 5 cities. And I was really thinking domestically. Like, for me, international travel was not even a dream. Like, you know, sometimes you have dreams. It wasn't even a dream because, like, I didn't have such dreams back then. It was an interesting time. And I was really focused on getting high grades because in Turkey, at the end of the high school, you take a national university admission test, and if you get high scores, you can go some of the most prestigious universities in Turkey. So my goal was to get good grades and to be successful. I wasn't really thinking about the world. So that's how high school went. Well, fortunately, after 4 years of hard work, a lot of dedication and sacrifices, I was able to go to one of the most renowned, most successful universities in Turkey. I registered for the Translation and Interpreting Studies program at Boğaziçi University in Istanbul. And I think that was a turning point in my life. And for the first time, I was far away from my family. I mean, when I was attending high school, I wasn't staying with my family. I was staying at a dorm, but it was still close to my family. I could be home in maybe 30 minutes. But this time, my parents were on the other side of the country, and I was in Istanbul on my own, staying at a dorm, and in a very new culture, because my hometown, the place my parents lived, it was very different. It was possibly culturally a lot more conservative than Istanbul, because Istanbul is basically a mix of cultures, a mix of languages, a mix of peoples, basically. It has a very rich culture and history, and as a result, it was a very different experience, a rich and enriching experience, but I needed some time to get used to it. And luckily, my university had a lot of international exchange programs with universities from other countries. So there were a lot of foreign students, both from Europe, from the US, from Asia, basically from all over the world. And as a result, I got to meet a lot of new people, a lot of new friends from very different countries, from very different cultures. Like, I got to make friends from countries whose name I had not heard before. That was a very interesting experience. And in the second year of the university, during the summer recess, I traveled to the US for a summer internship. And that was really transformational because it was my first time traveling abroad. And interestingly, in my first travel abroad, I was going to Nevada in the US, and it was, to me, the other end of the world. Like, I could have flown to Australia, maybe to Japan, or the US. Like, the US, or Nevada in that case, was one of the furthest places on the map for me. And honestly, it felt a little bit scary because I had three changes. Like, I flew to Italy and then to, I think, Los Angeles, and then I took a regional plane to Nevada. So that was a transformational experience. And then at the end of my internship, when I was coming back to Turkey, and as I was watching the clouds from the plane, I was thinking to myself, well, I did it. If I can go to the US, which is to me the other side of the world, I can pretty much go to anywhere in the world. Like, it brought me a lot of courage. It brought me a lot of motivation. And in the third and fourth year of college, I traveled a lot, and I saved up most of my money to travel. And I traveled to a lot of European countries, to the Netherlands, to Germany, to Austria, to Slovenia, to a lot of big and small countries. And I got to experience a lot of different cultures. I got to meet a lot of different people, and it was simply an eye-opening experience. You know, like, even the type of bread different countries sell, the drinks, the food, the places, the architecture, the people, and how they interact with each other, they were all different, and they were all inspiring in a sense. I really enjoyed traveling to different countries. And my experience in the US and in Europe has literally transformed my perspective, my understanding of the world. At that point, I felt like the world was no longer a huge and immense and unreachable sort of plot of land. To me, the world seemed accessible. And I think that was the biggest transformation. I no longer viewed the world as this mysterious place. The world had become a lot more familiar, so to speak. Well, basically, in comparison, as I said, when I was a little kid, like, who used to live in a rural village, the world to me was a mysterious place, and I couldn't grasp the size of it, you know? To me, the world was the globe that I used to see in the classroom. To me, the world was basically it. Like, I didn't know where countries were. Like, I knew where my country, Turkey, was, but I didn't know where most of the other countries were. It was like a game. Like, to me, this thing they called the world was sort of a magical place. Was a different place maybe I would never know. But time has changed everything. And as I got older, I got to experience the world and explore different parts of it. I got to make friends from very different regions of the world. And as a result, I started to feel like a citizen of the world. You know, I'm Turkish, but there are things that I really like about the Turkish culture, and there are things that I don't. And then when I travel to a different country, I get to experience their culture, and then I find things that I really like, and I find things that I don't quite like. And I started developing an international taste, understanding, an international culture. I started to feel like a citizen of the world rather than being sort of glued to a single country or a single city. And I think it's a useful way to look at the world, because in the end, we're all humans, and there are common human needs or values or aspirations across the world, across different cultures. And I think it's great to be able to experience it, to see it. And it's great to be able to connect with people from different parts of the world. As I said, right now, as I'm recording this episode, it's almost 3:30 a.m. in the morning, and I'm in my living room in Istanbul. But you might be anywhere in the world. Maybe you're listening to me as you're jogging, or maybe you're in Turkey, maybe you're in the US, or somewhere in Europe, or maybe in Asia. You could be anywhere in the world. You could be doing anything. And it's great to be able to connect with each other at such a personal level, because the things that I'm sharing here are, to me, very personal. Like, it's almost like a story, seeing myself in hindsight, turning from a little boy into a teenager and then to a grown-up, and being able to talk about those experiences, maybe growing pains, is really valuable. And I'm glad that I'm able to share these things with you. Well, I've also had a lot of encounters which made me feel like the world is a very small place. For example, once, I think a few years ago, I was in Bangor, in the UK, for a summer school in computational linguistics. And in that town, there was a pizza shop that I used to visit. And I met a Turkish family, a very, very distant place for Turks to be. But what was more interesting was the fact that the family, it was a wife, husband, and their daughter. The man turned out to be the uncle of one of my primary school friends from the village. It was so much fun. I was like, wow, the world is really small. Like, I had not met that person before in Turkey or in my hometown or anywhere else. And I got to meet that person in a very different country, in a very distant city, at a pizza shop. And that was really remarkable. And then, as I was traveling back to Turkey from the UK, I was at a train station. I was going to take the train from Bangor to London. And I was waiting at the train station. And there was this American guy there. And we started talking. And it turns out this American guy had almost perfect Turkish. And I was blown away. Like, I was stunned. Like, how would you expect an American guy like in Bangor with like perfect Turkish? It turns out this guy did an internship in Turkey, in Istanbul, and was really interested in languages and practiced his Turkish a lot. That was very interesting. And I think in the summer of 2012, I was doing an internship in the UK, and I went to the Netherlands over a weekend to meet some family members. One of my cousins lived there, and we had an interesting encounter. I met one of my childhood friends whom I had not seen for more than 10 years. And I was like, the world is really small. Like, I had not met that friend for like more than maybe 10 years in Turkey. And we saw each other after so many years in the Netherlands. Well, I think this is it. These are the things that I wanted to share on the topic of our world, or the limits of our world, because I think there is an interesting saying that goes like, the limits of your language are the limits of your world. That's partly true, but we can also say that as we explore the world, as we go to different places, as we meet new people from different backgrounds, our understanding of the world becomes more complete, because generally we have a very limited understanding of the world, and the more we get to know the world, the more we understand it. It becomes very familiar, and as a result, I think we can say the world is both very small and it's at the same time very big. It's immense. But over the years, as I said, I've become a lot more familiar with the world, and honestly, it feels great to be able to travel, to be able to see all the different countries, all the different places, to be able to experience the differences and the beauties of the world. And I hope we can all start to travel again after this pandemic. And I hope we can all make friends in different countries and help to establish peace and prosperity around the world. Because I believe when you meet new people, when you form new connections, when you experience new cultures, you become friends. It really brings peace and harmony. And I think international travel is a really valuable investment, both for yourself and for the world. Well, that's it for now, and see you in the next episode.